Welcome to the Stepmom Side with Alicia Crasco, the podcast for stepmoms ready to create the life they want and one they actually have a say in. Here we talk all things stepmom life and just a little bit more. Leave the superficial conversations at the door and get ready for perspective shifts and actionable advice to help you on your way to creating the life you want, one step at a time. Welcome back to the Stepmom Side podcast. If you are a stepmom who's been feeling stuck, stressed, or just plain overwhelmed, you are in the right place. I'm Alicia Crasco. I'm your stepmom coach, and today's podcast episode is a tough one, in case you didn't see the title. We're talking about what happens when a stepmom decides to leave her relationship, but she's deeply connected to her stepkids. And listen, I get it. The idea of walking away from your partner is already gut-wrenching, but add in stepkids you love, it feels like a whole new level of heartbreak. So today we're diving into how to tell your stepkids you're leaving, whether you should stay in contact, how to handle the crushing guilt, because let's be honest, there's a lot of it, and ways to cope with the sadness. So grab a coffee, a glass of wine, or whatever emotional support beverage you need, and let's get into it. So first things first, breaking the news to your stepkids. There's no easy way to tell your stepkids that you're leaving. But here's the thing, honesty and reassurance are key. Depending on their age and maturity, here's how you can approach it. For younger kids, under the age of 10, you want to keep it simple and loving. Something like, I want you to know that I love you very much. Things between me and your dad or mom aren't working out, and I'm going to be living somewhere else. But I want you to remember that none of this is your fault. You are so special to me, and I will always care about you. It's very clear, it's very concise, it gets the point across, but it's also very touching. So for older kids and teens, you can be a little more open, but still keep the focus on them and not the breakup drama. Regardless of how much you want to like, well, okay, here's what really happened. We're not doing that. Here's a simple thing that you can say. I want to talk to you about something really hard. Your mom or dad and I have decided to separate, and that means I won't be living here anymore. But I need you to know that this has nothing to do with you. You're an amazing person, and being part of your life has meant so much to me. A few things to avoid when breaking the news. Blaming their parent or venting about what went wrong. That is never a good idea. It doesn't matter how close you are to your stepkid. Please don't ever blame their parent or vent about what went wrong. Making promises you can't keep. Like, I'll see you all the time. Unless you know for sure that you can, please don't ever say that because you're just setting them back up for like even more heartbreak. And number three, just disappearing without an explanation. Kids deserve closure too. And it is really hard because they've obviously already been through at least one breakup. Their parents aren't together. And then, if they were close with you and then now this is happening, like they also deserve closure. Because think about like when something happens with you and you're like, was it me? Did I do something wrong? And you start to question yourself. Kids also do that. So let's talk the second part. Now that you've ended the relationship, should you stay in contact? And this is such a messy one. And honestly, there is no one size fits all answer. So when staying in contact makes sense is like if their parent is up for it, if the kids are old enough to reach out directly, if you had a strong relationship and they see you as a safe adult in their life, those are ways like when it or times when it like makes sense for you to stay in contact. I'm going to repeat them again because I kind of like jumbled them. So when staying in touch makes sense, if their parent is open to it, if the kids are old enough to reach out directly, and if you had a strong relationship and they see you as a safe adult in their life. And here's when it might be best to kind of take a step back, even as much like heartbreak as this brings you. If their parent is hostile and won't allow it, if staying in contact keeps you emotionally stuck, I think this is a big one to talk about because not so much that you necessarily are pining for their parents still, but it's keeping in contact with a kid maybe keeps you emotionally vested, or maybe like it's a way for you to keep tabs on their parent or your ex. And if it's something that it just makes the breakup that much harder, sometimes for you emotionally, it's not beneficial. Number three, if it creates tension for the kids and it makes them feel like they have to sneak to talk to you. So if you do stay in contact, it's really important to set clear expectations. Will you text? Have occasional meetups? Will you send birthday cards? Define it so there's no confusion. Like, how often will you keep in contact? When are you reaching out? When can they reach out? Just expectations. Manage everyone's expectations. And if you can't stay in contact, a really good idea is you could write them a heartfelt letter before you go. Let them know how much they mean to you and that you'll always, or they'll always have a place in your heart. It won't erase the pain, but it will give them something tangible to hold on to. Now let's talk about like the hard part, guilt. So the guilt hits hard, and like now what do we do? So guilt is the silent passenger in every stepmom's life, even on a good day. But when you leave, it screams at you, or it feels like it screams at you, right? Did I abandon them? Am I causing them more heartache? Am I selfish? Should I have stayed for the kids? I mean, how many times have we heard that as stepmoms? Like, oh, their parents should have stayed together for the kids. And then now, like, when you're like, okay, I need to get out of this relationship, but I need to stay for the kids. And so now it's kind of eye-opening. You're like, oh, okay, I get it. But here's the reality. You can love the kids and still choose what's best for your well-being. So here's how to work through the guilt. Remind yourself why you left. Your needs, your happiness, and mental health matter. Staying in an unhealthy relationship for the kids doesn't actually help them. And I know this is not going to come as a surprise to you what I'm about to say, but it teaches them to expect, or not to expect, but it teaches them to accept unhappiness, or it teaches them to accept whatever behavior it was that they saw. Is that what you want? So remind yourself why you left. Your needs, happiness, and mental health matters. Staying in an unhealthy relationship for the kids doesn't actually help them. It teaches them to accept unhappiness. Ugh, that is such a gut punch. Acknowledge the loss. It's a grieving process. It's okay to cry, to be angry, to miss them. And you know what? There are going to be times that are really hard to navigate, like their first birthday without them, first holidays. You're going to see something that makes you think of them. And grief is going to hit you out of nowhere. It's kind of like waves. Sometimes you just have to ride them. Sometimes the waves are really high and they're crashing and you feel like you're drowning. And then other times the waves are just kind of like a ripple. And you're like, okay, I'm okay. Regardless, wear your life preserver at all times. Find a way to honor your time with them. Write in a journal, create a photo album, or even keep a small keepsake that reminds you of your time together. It's okay for you to miss them. I want to give you that permission. It's okay for you to miss your stepkids and not miss your ex. It's okay for you to want to go back and spend time with your stepkids, but not want to go back and spend time with their parent. It's okay. The two can be the same, or the two can be true at the same time. Get support. I think this is the biggest thing because it is such a hard thing to navigate. Like, get support. So talk to a therapist, a coach, or a trusted friend who gets it because not everyone will. And like I said, it's a hard dynamic to navigate. So please, please, please get support. Now let's talk about coping with the sadness. And let's be real, this will hurt a lot, but you will get through it. Here are some ways you can cope. Lean on your people. You need support, whether it's a best friend, a coach, hi, that's me, or a community of women who understand stepmom struggles. I also have a community, the Stepmom Side community, which would be a massive benefit for you. Avoid the urge to stalk. Do not, do not, do not, do not, do not sit on social media watching their life from the sidelines. It will only make the healing harder. Because what is social media? It's the highlight reel of everyone's life. So what your ex is putting on social media is all of the good things. So you're like, oh, they're not even sad about me. They're not even, what you aren't probably seeing is their dark times too. Please, for the love of God, do not stalk them on social media, please. Find a new routine. Your identity has been wrapped up in this role, and now it's time to rediscover you. So, whether it's running, journaling, traveling, or picking up a new hobby, find things that bring you joy outside of stepmom life. So, find your identity again. Who were you before you were a stepmom? And this applies to you even if you're a stepmom right now and you're not thinking of leaving your relationship. A lot of times as stepmoms, we get so wrapped up in our stepmom role that we forget like who we were before we became a stepmom. So find a new routine. Who are you? What do you like? What brings you joy? And go do those things. Give yourself grace. Some days you'll feel strong. Other days you will feel wrecked and just want to be in the fetal position in the corner crying your eyes out. Both are normal. Healing isn't linear. Wow, my words are really hard today. Healing isn't linear. It is one of those things where sometimes it feels like you've made so much progress, and then you'll be out and about and you'll see something that will remind you of your ex or the kids, and then you feel like you're back at square one and like sobbing. It's okay. Give yourself grace. So if you are in this situation right now, I want you to hear this loud and clear. You are not a bad person for leaving. I'm going to repeat that again. You are not a bad person for leaving. You didn't abandon anyone, because I know we do like worst case scenario. You didn't abandon anyone. You made a choice based on what's best for you. And that is okay. I know that this was a heavy episode, but I hope that it gave you a little bit of clarity, a little bit of comfort, and a reminder that you're not alone. You're not the first stepmom to leave a relationship. You're not the first stepmom to feel guilt about what are the kids going to think? How are they doing? You're not the first person to cycle through that. So please go back through and just listen to this because we did cover a little bit. So how to tell your stepkids you're leaving, whether you should stay in contact, how to handle the crushing guilt, and how to cope with this sadness. It's okay for you to be sad. It's okay for you to feel guilt. You just can't stay there and pack up in that. You have to like get through it slowly but surely. So if this episode resonated with you, send me a DM on Instagram. I'm just at Alicia Crasco. I'd love to hear your story. And if you're struggling with stepmom guilt, boundaries, or navigating this whole mess, book a coaching session with me. You don't have to figure this out alone. I will help you. But until next time, take care of yourself. And remember, you too deserve peace. This has been another episode of the Stepmom Side podcast. If you found it helpful, please share, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps other stepmoms find this podcast too. I'll talk to you next week. Thanks for taking time to listen to this week's episode. If anything was helpful or resonated with you, please share it on social media and tag me. I'm just at Alicia Crasco. And if you could leave a 5-star rating and a review while you're at it, that would also be really helpful. And if you find yourself struggling with your stepmom journey and you want a little bit more support without the hefty price tag of coaching, you might want to check out the Stepmom Side community, which is my own private community for stepmoms, where you get to connect with other stepmoms around the world and myself, where I hold weekly office hours and monthly group coaching. It's kind of like you have your own personal coach in your own back pocket. Again, without that hefty price tag. See you next week.